Good evening. On behalf of this very special Eve of the Millennial event, I'd like to welcome you all here. This is our trial run. And I'd also like to say, as the first of the artists of the year that will be collaborating and performing for you this evening, I'd like to greet you, the community, with gratitude for your role in supporting all of the arts, making Santa Cruz the very special place that it has become.
I began my career in art in the early 70s after a life-changing tour of duty in Vietnam. After I came back from that tour, spent a couple of years trying to sort things out, I decided that one thing that I did want to do for a foreseeable period of time was to create beautiful things. And of course, for those of you who are maybe aware of the art during the 70s, it was a time of process. Artists were trying to explore new medium, finding ways of getting closer to medium and materials, and it was a period of discovery. As it was for me, right here in Santa Cruz, I discovered paper, and to me it was magical. And I spent every living hour for the next 20 years thoroughly enjoying my pleasure in the muse of paper. So tonight, actually I'll show you 4 slides, one of which you see now, of me in a much earlier state, hair-wise anyway. I involved myself with handmade paper and tried anything and everything that I could to play with that material. It was white by its nature, coming from cotton and rag, and it had a surface and it had an edge. And I spent many countless hours and created probably over 1,000 pieces involving and exploring just those elements and limiting myself to that. But by limiting it, it's kind of like going through the eye of a needle. The entire universe was open to me to play, in which I did. So the 4 slides that are on tonight were of works that I created during the 80s. The titles are insignificant and not important, and they'll serve to dramatize the look of what I did then during that a long period of time in the 80s. The pieces you will see will be very representative of all my work during the 80s. And I was delighted to continually exploring, finding new ways to present it and make a statement in art. But I will have to say one overriding thing is that all the while, I truly and honestly, unabashedly pursued the elusive white muse. So now I'd like to turn the stage over to my friend and fellow artist of the year, Jim Houston, to further that endeavor. Thank you very much.
Since Chuck Hilgers has chosen to feature some of his work with white paper, he has asked me to read an excerpt from Moby Dick, expressing Herman Melville's opinion on the subject of whiteness. I have to tell you that I jumped at the chance to do this, in part because I admire Chuck's work, and in part because I also love this novel. And it is not every day that someone asks you to read out loud from Moby Dick. While it's one of the world's great adventure stories, it is also Melville's profound meditation on the shapes and mysteries of the human condition, such as we hear in these passages from the chapter called The Whiteness of the Whale. Aside from those more obvious considerations touching Moby Dick, which could not but occasionally awaken in any man's soul some alarm, there was another thought, or rather vague, nameless horror concerning him, which at times by its intensity completely overpowered all the rest. And yet so mystical and well-nigh ineffable was it that I almost despair of putting it in a comprehensible form. It was the whiteness of the whale that above all things appalled me. How can I hope to explain myself here? And yet, in some dim, random way, explain myself I must, else all these chapters might be naught. Though in many natural objects whiteness refiningly enhances beauty, as if imparting some special virtue of its own, as in marbles, japonicas, and pearls, and though various nations have in some way recognized a certain royal preeminence in this hue, even the barbaric, grand old kings of Pegu, placing the title Lord of the White Elephants above all their other magniloquent ascriptions of dominion, and the modern kings of Siam unfurling the same snow-white quadruped in the royal standard. And though besides all this, whiteness has been even made significant of gladness, for among the Romans a white stone marked a joyful day, And though in other mortal sympathies and symbolizings, this same hue is made the emblem of many touching, noble things, the innocence of brides, the benignity of age. Though among the red men of America, the giving of the white belt of wampum was the deepest pledge of honor. Yet for all these accumulated associations with whatever is sweet and honorable and sublime, there yet lurks an elusive something in the innermost idea of this hue which strikes more of panic to the soul than that redness which affrights in blood. This elusive quality it is which causes the thought of whiteness, when divorced from more kindly associations and coupled with any object terrible in itself, to heighten that terror to the furthest bounds. Witness the white bear of the poles and the white shark of the tropics. What but their smooth, flaky whiteness makes them the transcendent horrors they are? It is at once the most meaning symbol of spiritual things, nay, the very veil of the Christian's deity. And yet it is the intensifying agent in things the most appalling to mankind. Is it that by its indefiniteness it shadows forth the heartless voids and immensities of the universe, and thus stabs us from behind with the thought of annihilation when beholding the white depths of the Milky Way? Or is it that, as in essence, whiteness is not so much a color as the visible absence of color, and at the same time the concrete of all colors? Is it for these reasons that there is such a dumb blankness, full of meaning, in a wide landscape of snows, a colorless all color of atheism from which we shrink? And like willful travelers in Lapland who refuse to wear colored and coloring glasses upon their eyes, so the wretched infidel gazes himself blind at the monumental white shroud that wraps all the prospect around him. And of all these things, the albino whale was the symbol. Wonder ye then at the fiery hunt. Thank you.
Dance. In the dance of life, you gotta woo the wood in the match before you light it, and the wavering shadow of the wave underneath the wave in the flame when you ignite it. You gotta bet on the wager that wags the tail untold on the shaggy dog come out of the cold to warm itself by the burning logs, roaring in the grate. Because from the start, you've got to be so bold as to woo the fire dancing in your heart. tapping, rapping, twined in braids of sunlight, turning this way and that, endlessly looking for our place, we fall from ledges and leaves, slapping boulders and stones, spattering tree trunks, sliding down weed stalks, only to be tugged upward and to fall again, tapping, rapping, falling this way and that, assuming the shapes of boulders and leaves or whatever objects we encounter along the way.
There's an emphasis on new work tonight, so I'm going to read a few pages from a novel I recently completed to be published later this year. It's called Snow Mountain Passage. It's a historical novel set in the 1840s, mostly here in Northern California. It's based on the experiences of a family who crossed the continent with the infamous Donner Party, a family who started out from Springfield, Illinois in 1846 and actually ended up right here in Santa Cruz. I want to tell you a bit about how I got interested in this material. Ernest Hemingway used to say that a writer does not choose his material, your material chooses you. And for many years, we've been living in a house over on East Cliff Drive, an elderly Victorian about a block back from the beach that was once inhabited by the descendants of James Fraser Reed, a fellow from Springfield who co-organized what came to be known as the Donner Party. His grandson, Fraser Lewis, bought this house in 1915 after he made a lot of money selling a candy bar that he invented over in Capitola called the Fraser Lewis Victoria Cream, which you can still buy over there at Buckhart's Candy Store, right around the corner from where we live. When he bought this house, he brought along his aging mother, Patty Reed, who was the younger daughter of James Reed and one of the younger survivors of the Donner Party. It's her little doll on display up there at Sutter's Fort in Sacramento that has become one of the most popular artifacts from that era. For the last 10 years of her long life, Patty Reed lived in what is now our house and died in what is now our bedroom in 1923. This novel had its origins a while back when Patty began to talk to me, or at least I began to feel her voice in the house. My wife got worried about this because she is not comfortable with the idea of spirits lingering around a piece of property. But I told her there was nothing to worry about. I told her if Patty Reed was talking to me, that's good. A novelist, you see, will take anything he can get if it helps to move the story along. About half of this book is now written in Patty's voice, while she was in her 80s, sitting on what is now our front porch, looking out at the beach and thinking back over her family's life and her father's life. Last night, I dreamed again about my mother. She was standing in the snow. There were trees with snow-laden branches. She wore a long coat and her hair hung loose. Her arms reached toward me. She was speaking words I could not hear. I ran through the snow while her mouth spoke the silent words. I was young, a little girl, and also the age I am now. For a long time I ran toward her with outstretched arms. Finally, I was close enough to hear her soft voice say, "You understand that men will always leave you." I stopped running and in my mind called out to her, "No, it isn't so." Her mouth twitched as if she were about to speak again. She wanted to say, "Listen to me, Patty." She was trying to say it. I woke up then and spoke aloud. "Women leave you too." I was speaking right to her, and I waited, expecting to hear her voice in my ear, as if she were close by me in the dark. I whispered, "Don't you remember?" But she was gone. I dropped back against my pillow and lay there half the night, trying to fall asleep so she would come to me again and speak again. I couldn't sleep. I had started thinking about her life and Papa's life and all our lives, about who stays and who leaves who and when, thinking how a man can be right there next to you and at the same time somehow gone off by himself, or maybe already gone away forever. How a mother can do that too, thinking then about all of them from those years so long ago, walking in and out of my mind like people in a pageant, ordinary people who did not expect such a crowd to be watching them pass by. Papa and Mama, my brothers and sisters, the teamsters and mule skinners and grizzled husbands on their dried-up wagon seats, and their women watching the trail ahead, and the Indians who traveled with us from time to time. Every kind of Indian you can think of, Sauk and Delaware and Sioux and Shoshone and Paiute and Washoe and Miwok, along with all the others we met by accident on the way, though when you look back, it seems anything but accidental. Now, this morning, from my porch, I watch the road that runs beside the lagoon and down to the beach. Between the beach and this lagoon, there is a rail line that follows the sand. It's an odd sight. Hundreds of pilings support the track, like a centipede walking from town to town along the shoreline. Beyond the sand, the water's edge today is quiet, like a lake. Beyond the beach, beyond the rail line, the Pacific Ocean spreads and spreads. When I was a girl, there were no trains anywhere yet out here. When we came through the mountains, there was hardly any trail. Where the train cuts through the Sierra Nevada now, we made that trail. What a long road we have followed, and it has finally brought me here to yet another house where I have become another old woman, looking out, looking back.
The thesis, simply spoken, is if a person uses a chair long enough, it becomes them. None of the people in these chairs are very successful in their lives. This was a shaman's throne. He was not a specialist. He wore a white coat by day. At night, he wore a fur cape hung with rough bells. At times, he painted his face orange and green. He knew spells and prescriptions. He knew what to say to the patients and what to say to the gods. His bedside manner depended largely on the time of day. Words stopped coming with a hush. Something in there broke, and there are no useful tools at hand. Reading is worthless, drinking is worthless, but too enjoyable. Boredom, it seems, is a possible cure. I can smell the flowers now. It's a bad sign. Paris, Istanbul, the Serengeti, it just boils down to this. Photos can all be ordered the exact same size, and postal cards are agreeably uniform. It's all in the travel box. Tonight he may elect to step out of his hotel in Rome into the back alleys of Hong Kong to catch that large, elusive boyhood trout. How to blow out a candle. Man, A, in basement raps on pipes for heat. Deaf stage manager, B, thinks it's time to begin the show. Signals to mouse, C, who jumps through the wrong hoop, D. Sees cat by birdhouse, E, and squeaks. Bird, F, thinks it's her husband calling, kicking egg, G, into mill pond, H. Duck, I, thinks she's going to become a mother, turns to swim back, creating a breeze, blowing out candle, J. Rube Goldberg variations. This man was king cause and effect. His was the syndicated victory of logic. Each week, he reenacted the heroic essences of high art. Style triumphant over the dull functions. Elaboration triumphant over engineering. Bird cages and cats can be a major source of power. Still, B must follow after A, inevitably ad infinitum. And there are times when I felt like starting things, the time I felt like solving problems, and those really good days when you felt like finishing something. So I always had several things going in different states. I've always admired people that start at A and end at Z and know where Z was going to be. Didn't work that way for me.
What is this village, so strangely familiar, where we find ourselves wandering through alleys of night? Not knowing why, we followed the path from the bay through the valley and ascended to find ourselves here, with no one in sight. It seems we have been here before, always trying to find our way, never understanding how we arrived or where we were going, although we knew that this place was our destination from the start. The streets are a labyrinth where all possible stories have happened before and will happen again. They have been enacted by others whose feet have worn these cobbles smooth. Others who have come, as we have, not knowing why, and sensed, as we do, that the lives in these houses we could not enter were like their own. And like us, they passed by, wondering about the voices cursing or crooning behind the shutters as they wandered from one midnight alley to another, until eventually they arrived at this place where all the alleys meet beneath these stone stairs. The staircase looms above us. How have we come this close without realizing it was here, so that now we find ourselves below it, where it rises like a cresting wave above our heads? We can smell the dampness of the stones, the sour grasses sprouting from the crevices and cracks in each stair. And suddenly we realize what we have always known, that we have journeyed here to find this staircase and confront our shadows, or, most unsettling of all, to confront our possible lack of shadows. Do you see the two wooden doors in the stone wall at the end of the small square above the stairs? Will we find what we've been searching for beyond those doors, where a garden waves its foliage above the wall, as if to entice us, like arms that continually beckon and allure? Listen. Do you hear it? The sound of a flute. Its music flying hollow toward us through the darkness, accompanied by plucked strings from an ancient instrument. And now, a woman singing from the garden beyond the wall.
You are human. Therefore, do not seek to foretell what tomorrow may bring, nor how long happiness may last. For not even the flutter of a fly's wings is as fast as the changing of fortune.
And almost immediately we understand that this is a staircase not meant to be climbed. The small square it leads to is an open-air stage on which all manner of rituals are performed, sacrifices and celebrations conducted by priests and populace alike. Here kings are crowned and killed, baptisms and funerals enacted. Here hearts are torn from chests, and miracles of healing bring the dead to life once more. Here gods, as babes, are held high for the populace to see, and later, as adults, hammered to wooden crosses on a hill for crowds like us to mourn or cheer. Here we rediscover once again that we must choose from one day to the next whether to murder Caesar or to crown him, whether to betray friend or stranger, or to honor them. We have journeyed here to be reminded of these things. Now we understand once more that we are pilgrims, and that if our lives are a continual pilgrimage, part of our travels is to be reminded at appointed times that not every 1,000 years, not every month or week, but every day, in small as well as heroic ways, we repeat decisions others have made before, and those who come after us will have to make again, and that such recurrences are the fate of the human race. Periodically, then, at least in our heads, we must journey to a place like this and return to our homelands acutely aware of our burden of perpetual choice, leaving the garden above the stairs behind in the knowledge that it is always beyond our grasp, a place of permanent peacefulness that we may yearn for, but is not our lot to attain. It is time to go. Let us make our way back through the alleys, past the silent buildings, and by daybreak descend through the valley below to where the ships are waiting in the bay. There we will take our leave of one another as solemnly as this occasion demands, and make a memory of this night in the dead of winter at the end of the year. Soon after we leave this place, a woman will enter and climb midway up these stairs. Like us, she will be passing through. She is looking for her daughter. She will find her on a day filled with sunlight. It will be spring.
Disarm myself, really, surrender to this new idea. Clouds have been harnessed by painters in endless sunsets and moonrises and storms, and yet in sculpture it's evaded being harnessed, and so that, in a sense, was another enticement. The fact that there were no cliches to avoid. I could create my own if I didn't watch myself. But in a way, there were 5 pieces in this last show, and it represents 4 or 5 years of work and lots of dead ends, lots of discards. I wanted it to feel as it was growing rather than just being planted, something that might have appeared out of its source. This is the first of the cloud pieces. It was done in clay originally, as all of these were, and then cast into plaster. And the plaster was further refined. And then finally, a mold's made and the waxes poured and then taken to the foundry where it was finally cast. And then the real work begins. I saw these mountains and clouds with a great sense of play, and a volcano, although terrifying, has a kind of almost comic presence. And I wanted this thing to feel, again, light and different than the other pieces. It seems to puff out in those segments. Somebody said it very well. A sculptor named Andrea Cascella said, it was Piero Casciona's brother. There's too much blood on that stone. To get those things out of the quarries is an ordeal, and people suffer and die to do that, and you can't play it disorder and bohemianism. And it's quite well said, I think. So it requires reverence.